How you doing, everyone? Having a quick chat today with a very good friend of mine. He's a vocal coach living in Galway in Ireland. His name is Cathal Jack. And full disclosure here, myself and Cathal go back quite a bit. We've played in bands together, and we ring each other about 3 times a week to have a laugh. And he's one of my best friends. So look, I thought, it'd be very beneficial for all the singers to have a quick chat with them, just to see, can he, share any nuggets of his knowledge of vocal training with us. So Cathal, if you could tell us a bit about yourself to start off anyway.
Hi Dave, thanks for having me. I'm one of those singers who was startled to realise that you could actually train your voice and make it even better. So while it's true that I've been singing probably since before I was talking, I've been training as a singer since 2007. I've been teaching then since 2009. And while I used to tour a lot with you, as it happens, I do that less still a bit, but my full-time gig now is voice training.
Very good. And who would you usually work with? What type of clients would you have normally?
Well, I think I was thinking about this. There are two basic columns. There's the obvious and there's the not so obvious. And first of all, anyone who's interested in improving their voice is someone that I would work with. So that's really the only criteria. But to bring it to the creatives and the artists, the singer who feels that they can hear in their head how they want to get their words out and how they want their voice to be, and it just doesn't come out the way they want, or the singer who's frustrated by I suppose the shortcomings that they can imagine for themselves creatively in terms of expression. Again, me as a voice coach can help a singer unlock that freedom in their voice. And not only that, but, to talk about the types of singers I might meet, the disastrous one is the singer whose voice is really, really in a bad place from normally years of abuse and a kind of singing that has compounded in terms of how it's debilitated the quality of their voice over the years. And it's normally people in their mid or late 30s that ring me and say, I don't know what's happened to my voice. All of a sudden it's not working. These are normally people who, they might have a studio session booked next week. They probably have a tour booked. They have commitments that they can't honor if their voice isn't up to it. And for that kind of person, it really is a very, very stressful situation. So that is the call I dread, because at that point, there really isn't a quick fix. There are certainly fixes, but they all take time.
Very good. And then, in terms of actually, training your voice, how does somebody train their voice?
The first thing to keep in mind is that whatever you do in voice training, it is best done when it is done for you. While, there's a lot of great information out there in the ether, whether it's on the internet or YouTube in particular is a great resource for ideas and concepts. When it comes to its application, it really only works when it's just for you. The most important thing to keep in mind, I think, is that my job is to help preserve your voice as it already is and as you like it, and only to add quality to it. And in the process, there really is a beginning, a middle, and an end. And it's a process that's measured over months and years, if I'm honest, rather than days and weeks. And if someone wants to think of it this way, your voice, when you're using it at this level, is basically an athlete. And not only do you need to work to get it into the best possible shape it can be, but you also need to maintain it in that shape. You really need to look after it.
Great. That's great. That's actually a great thing to know, is that, I suppose that would, for me, if I thought, vocal lessons were going to, result in me sounding totally different, it'd not sit well, but it's when you put it that way, that it's keeping what you have and adding that bit of quality. That's great. Yeah.
We're like plastic surgeons. Our work is best done when it's not noticed.
Very good. Typically, what would the biggest obstacles be, that singers struggle with when they come to you to the first time, and how would you help them to kind of overcome those obstacles?
While it's true that everybody is different, I think the biggest step, and it's a two-way process, is that the singer is open-minded, is that they are open to trying out different things. And honestly, a voice coach like me, or any voice coach for that matter, is really going to take a singer out of their comfort zone. And singing is one of those things that is such a natural expression that once we begin to interfere with that, for whatever reason, it starts to feel clumsy, it starts to feel unfamiliar. So while I said already that it's a process that's measured in the medium and long term in terms of its effectiveness, in terms of the benefits, initially, because we're front loading that hard work, you need to kind of have a little bit of faith in your teacher that they are guiding you in the right way, doing the right things, and very importantly for the right reasons. And at that point, I think two things are really important for me in my role, which are, aside from my knowledge and input, is to communicate very well and also to empathize and to understand the singer. Because the truth is that, especially if a singer is feeling that their voice isn't serving them, I think our voice, whether it's for singing or even for speaking, it's what stands between us with the thoughts in our head and delivering them to the world. So if we feel that our voice isn't delivering for one reason or another, it can actually, sometimes I find, begin to affect our confidence. So my understanding, or someone in my role's understanding of where somebody is in those terms, as well as communicating why we're doing what we're doing, is really a very, very important first step. And after that, I'm the kind of person, and I say this to everybody in the first session, that hates to be taught in a way where I'm told to do this and do this and do this and it'll work. And even if that's true, if I don't have a perspective as to how and why, I find it hard to motivate myself to practice and put in that hard work that it takes to really get the benefit of it. So I strive all the time to not teach the way I hate to be taught myself.
Very good. Brilliant. Look, I suppose for me, and as a producer, and someone who takes a couple of vocal sessions a week, mostly here in the studio, the biggest thing that I see artists struggle with is making sure their voice is in good condition. Leading up to a recording session, they often come in, where they're not feeling 100%. Would you have any tips, that people could use, for a day or two even before the recording session, just to make sure that they're in as good shape as can be when that day comes?
Yeah, absolutely. And we can be very proactive in those terms as well. And I think if we're serious about our work, we ought to be, is what's more. In terms of habits that you can cultivate, again, I emphasize that building up good habits is something that's done over time, I feel, if I'm honest. But really the important ones are hydration, which is so simple. And hydration doesn't need to be anything more than water. It's that simple. Sleep. If you're going to have a long day in the studio, make sure that you've had enough sleep the night before so that your voice is just recovered from the rigors of the day before. Sing in a healthy way, which again brings it back to voice training, the good habits that helps you develop over time with your voice, so that whatever you're doing the day before or 2 days before, whether you've been recording at home, demoing, whether you've been performing concerts, that again your voice isn't worn out. And all the things that come with that, whether it's using in-ear monitors, having a good relationship with your monitor engineer. And the other big one is not to smoke. Is such a huge one. I can't go on enough about, especially again, the singers that I meet in their 30s that are having problems with their voice. It's so often a factor. It really, really is. Other things like, be wary of your diet. And I think that's obvious in the short term, but even the long term, the world is full of singers whose voices aren't at their best because they have acid reflux, and because most of the time they have it at night, they don't even realize that they have it. caffeine, alcohol, again, the night before, they can impair your sleep, but in the long term, they also dehydrate your body, which brings us back to hydration. And, you know, even down to, for people who, because different people are built differently. So some singers, their voice is really robust, particularly when they're younger, and they can kind of get away with murder. But for other people, they have to be so careful, even if they're in a loud environment, to be wary of just how you talk to people, to say nothing of how you sing. That can be enough for some people to tip them over the edge. And I think, you know, on the day of a session, you know, the things you're talking about, warm up well, be prepared. I think there's nothing worse than someone turning up for a session unprepared, whether it's in terms of the music that they were to have prepared for that day, or files that they were to have sent you, or rehearsal that they were to have done with their bandmates, because anything that causes stress, again, is going to impair your
Very good. Brilliant. Is there any, you know, I suppose, other than keeping yourself hydrated with water, I mean, if you are struggling, is there any magic drink that you can take before a session that'll give you a little boost?
What I'll say, first of all, at that point, if you're in real trouble, there probably aren't really any silver bullets, unfortunately. But what can be very, very good is hot lemon and honey, but with ginger, which is an anti-inflammatory. Okay. And some singers as well actually might take ibuprofen, again, as an anti-inflammatory. But that, in those instances, you know, what you're talking about specifically is dealing with swollen vocal folds, you know, which is very common. But a singer could have other deeper problems that are caused by lifestyle or by technique. And again, you know, we might at that stage have to take a step back. But a good warm up, hydration, sleep are the best things that you can do.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Right, I have to ask you this. How do people hit the high notes? What's the secret?
First of all, everybody is different. So it depends on what happens when they hit the high note. But a friend of mine and a great voice coach in Vancouver, I heard him say one day that, you know, our job in broad strokes is to teach guys to sing like girls and sing girls to sing like guys. And actually there's so much truth in that, because again, speaking in broad strokes, guys tend to try and force their voice too hard to make it do what it does. And it causes them to strain when they sing higher notes, whereas girls tend to sing a little too light and their voice gets lighter and thinner as they go higher. So I think there is a bit of truth to that. But to be more specific, if it's very common for a male singer, for instance, to find as he's going for a note, particularly once he gets to a D or D sharp and north of that, that his voice can really start to strain. And if that's the case, my first job is to help that singer experience what it's like to sing in that part of their voice without strain. And what is a pain about that for the singer in terms of their experience at the time is that they are going to all of a sudden be working with a voice that's clumsy, that's unfamiliar, and worst of all, that is very meek and light and nearly silly. What I said earlier on about in the initial stages of voice training, that one of my most important jobs is to be a good communicator. At that point, the perspective that I have to give that singer is that he is taking that step back in order that he can establish that balance, that he can sing up to those G's, G sharps and A's that he might have strained to before without that strain. And that then once he can experience and is familiar with the experience of singing up to those notes, we can start to build the tone back up. With female singers, and again, speaking in broad strokes, if she finds that perhaps she's happy with the balance of her voice, but at times it's a little lighter than she would like, again, we start a process of allowing her to experience what it's like to sing, you know, with a heavier weight of tone. And we build that voice from the bottom up right down to, you know, an F sharp or even an F. build her voice up and gradually let that voice, that stronger voice, extend higher and higher into her range. But with things like that, I emphasize again, everybody's a little bit different. This process of voice training, it is bespoke to the singer. It is a one-on-one thing. You know, there's great knowledge out there, but when it comes to applying it, it needs to be applied to you. And I suppose if you want to think of it this way, it is a reactive process. And what I mean by that is that what I get from the singer's voice determines where we will go in that day. While we will have goals set for us that are on the horizon that we're working toward over periods of months and sometimes years, what we do on a given day is determined by how the voice is then.
Very good. Brilliant. Excellent. Well, just before we go, you know, I suppose for the singers, the recording artists watching this, do you have any kind of quick little tips that you could share that would benefit those people?
Yeah, I think I think we've already spoken about the good habits insofar as sleep, hydration, preparation, voice training in general. Something with my professional singers that I'm always at pains to emphasize is the importance of good monitoring, for instance, in terms of a good thing that you can change to have a positive effect on your voice. And I'm a huge believer in in-ear monitors. I don't know how any serious singer can do without them. But I think more than that, you know, no more than having a good producer in your corner when you're an artist. I think when you are an artist and you're an expressive person, the frustration that can sometimes manifest itself in you as that singer, feeling that you can, you know, in your mind's ear, if you like, you can hear what it is you want to put out there, but your voice is standing in your way from doing that. My job at that point is to help you have the freedom that you can do whatever it is that you want with your voice. Nothing should take away from what's already there. It should only add quality to it. It should allow you to conceive of more, to imagine more things that you can do with it. And the relationships that a lot of artists tend to have with their voice coaches endure for years, because what does develop is a trust, no more than with someone's production team or other collaborators that artists have, that this person is doing their best for you. And while it's good to, I always feel it's very healthy to have an ego in order to achieve what we do, we have to understand as well that, you know, it is the people around us doing their jobs that can really help us get the best out of ourselves.
Brilliant, fantastic. And okay, listen, Cathal, thanks a million for the chat. It's been great. There's lots of surprising little bits in there that I definitely wouldn't have known. If people want to connect with you or see what you're up to, where can they find you?
You can check me out at cathaljack.com, cathaljack.com, and also you can check me out on Instagram, Cathal Jack Vocal Coach, and I'm to be found on Twitter and other places. And if you have any questions, just send me an email. Check me out.
That's brilliant. Listen, Cathal, thanks again. I hope this has been a good help to the people looking in. It's obviously singing is its own whole mystery, and one we never seem to figure out. So it was brilliant to get these bits from Cathal. Okay, we leave it at that. Thanks a million. Cheers. Bye bye.